Hey, good morning, guys. All right, so today's the day where we're actually really doing I can't say deep dive, but we're definitely really trying to dig into the content. And so what we have behind me. So this is my homework wall. So my 8th grade students, what they're doing is a map filled out by Wednesday. So on one side they got a map, on the other side they got lines with a map and numbers. So they have to fill that out, and they have a test next Wednesday. Now, it is the only test throughout the year, like any student. Doesn't matter if they have an IEP 504 or if they're just, the person that's off the street. Every student gets as many times to take that test as they need to. I don't even ask. If they want to get that 100%, if they want to get 100% 5 times, it's not something I really ask. Okay, I just want my students to know in U.S. history where the different states are, right? Because how can we talk about U.S. history without knowing where states are? I don't ask about capitals. That's not my thing. But states, yes. And so we have here for studying for their map test. We have the map test practice. And today we're going to start our introduction into Native Americans as well. But this is the first thing that I give them. This is the first thing that they need to work on in the year. And down here in world history, you see down there. Okay, now here's the thing with world history in my first quarter. We have 2 U.S. or world history teachers in my school, and we teach things in a very different way for each of us. My way is in the first quarter for world history is heavily project-based because they're 7th graders. I'm trying to still instill in them skills, map reading skills, timeline skills, things like that, right? Now, my 8th graders, they have those skills, so I can push them a little bit harder. We use multiple different sources, different textbooks, and different readings from various different authors and things, okay? So it's a very different core than world history. World history, skills-based, at least for the first quarter to second quarter. And then the second half of the year, well, I start treating them more and more like 8th graders. I really do. I think we have to, just like math teachers, we have to step them up and scaffold, of course, but make sure that they know certain things before we push them a little bit harder. So my 7th grade students, what I do for world history is the textbook and all the questions within the textbook are just meant to support what we do in class, okay? So there's a ton of questions, and I usually give them, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, depending on how big the unit is, right? Or maybe even smaller. Maybe it's just 1 week, because there's a couple units that are really, really small. So I give them the appropriate amount of time to work on those homework assignments, and really there's only like 2 questions per page. The textbook is not overly hard, and I think you'd agree with me. In today's society, here in the United States, textbooks are becoming more and more and more of a joke, but I still find value. I still find overall value that they can do a good job as an overview, as a Cliff Notes version. Those of you who are old enough to know what Cliff Notes are. So with that, that's why I use it. Now, okay, so 7th grade, doing historian skills, learning how to reason, learning how to read maps, understanding what the parallels are, and I don't know, like hemispheres, things like super basic stuff. We're running through that really quick, but also learning historical reasoning, learning perspective, learning bias, learning sources, primary, secondary sources. So all of that is being front-loaded right now. And it'll take about 2 weeks to do that, okay? And that gives me plenty of time to ease into it, but also figure out classroom management. Because I tell you, man, my 7th graders this year, they're pretty squirrely, right? So I noticed yesterday, right off the bat, I'm going to have to make some movements. I had to talk to some students after class, and if it continues today, well, I'm going to have to send, some emails home and make some phone calls, right, to try to nip it in the butt. It's the beginning of the year. Classroom management is extremely important. Now, my U.S. history students, so I think I said in my last video, there's this really incredible source called SHAG, and it's like the Inquiry Group or something like that. And this is the make your case. Yesterday, they started this towards the end of class. Because yesterday, had to finish up some of the syllabus stuff. I had them log into their Chromebooks and get into my Google Classroom. And I also had them log into their digital textbook as well. We really don't use the digital textbook a ton, but we do use it. And so towards the end, this is a great opportunity for them to work with some pairs, stop me from talking a little bit, let them do their thing. I talked to them about perspective. I talked to them about corroboration, and then led into this. So some of the students got both sides done. Most of the students only got the one side done. And we're going to finish that up today. And then we're also going to start another activity that's kind of on the same line, and it is called the lunchroom fight. So again, this digital inquiry group, the label's right up there. So that'll give the students an opportunity, again, to take evidence and figure out for themselves, well, who's really responsible for the fight, and ultimately what's going to be the consequence. Because at the end of this, they're going to have to, play as principal and make a decision one way or the other, and figure out why as adults, we have to make these decisions and things. So it's just a practical thing. It's not really directly history related, but it's history skills related. And we have a ton of discussions in my class. I'm very much a Socratic teacher. I really don't use Socratic seminars. It is one of my goals to do that this year. We'll see if it happens. But I'm a Socratic teacher. I like to pose questions, get them thinking about things. Who, what, where, when, why, and how, right? And this year, my school, we're definitely putting more of a focus on writing and vocabulary. So that will help them hopefully develop the vocabulary and use their vocabulary in practical ways, using like the RACE method, where you have to find evidence, you have to cite evidence in your writing, and you got your 5-paragraph essay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so let's see. That is my plan for the day. And I can say, as social studies teachers, we can be stuck in the history a little bit, but we really need a plan ahead. And this year, it's really different from my school because we had to delay school a little bit. We've got a big construction project. So my planning from previous years honestly don't line up quite right with like the winter break. So I'm going to kind of be in crunch time. I have to get more information in, or, which I really don't like, I have to delay it and have some material that's going to have to be covered when they come back. And if you're a first-year teacher, getting kids, in alignment after they come back from winter break can be a pain in the butt. So I'm still making some decisions about that, and we'll see how that goes. And lastly, so field trips. Let's talk about field trips really quick, since it's talking about planning. I go on 2 field trips a year with my 8th grade. In the fall, I take them to a place called Roscoe Village in Coshocton, if you're in Ohio. Roscoe Village is pretty cool. So Roscoe Village is a canal town, and they actually can go on a canal boat ride. There's an awesome museum, and there's a bunch of buildings that were restored, and they have like self-guided tours. So that was really, really cool. My students really liked it last year. Towards the end of the year, I take them to Canal Winchester, Ohio. There's a place called Slate Run Living Historical Farm. Since we end during Reconstruction in the 1880s, and it's also in alignment with our standards, of course. Slate Run Living Historical Farm is something that they look forward to. It's kind of like a field day. I give them a scavenger hunt, and I give them points for completing the scavenger hunt. So it's a great time. They learn a ton, and I have inner city kids, and seeing inner city kids in a farm environment is pretty cool. So there we go. There's some ideas for you. You need to start planning your field trips ahead of time. Sometimes it can take 2, 3, 4 weeks to get a field trip lined up at my school. And I'm not talking about just on the principal side. I'm talking about communicating with your site back and forth, communicating with your treasurer back and forth, figuring out the money situation. So the sooner you do it, the better it is.
Good morning.